For our next assignment, we're going to be creating a top-down shooter. Let's go ahead and create a new project. Make sure that you choose a good folder to save it into. So I'm going to save it into this folder I've already created, but you could always create your own. And then I'm going to use an empty game this time to create this because I want to change some settings. The first thing I'm going to change is I want this game to actually be taller than it is wide. And so I'm going to set the width to be narrower to this time, and I'm going to set the height to be taller. And that way we'll get this impression of moving forward. And I'll call this, let's say, Space Shooter. And my name is this. So once I get that set up, I'll hit apply. And we're going to add our first scene. This will be our level 1, we'll call it. And then I can, whoops, I accidentally added a new one. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, and we'll click on that. And notice that the profile is different than we're used to. It's a narrow type screen. We're going to add a couple objects to this. So the first one I'm going to add is actually going to be the background. And I've already searched for space here. I'm going to use purple space because you can actually see some stars in it, and that will give us the appearance of motion. But you're certainly welcome to add any image you want. I'm going to add this. And then this object is a tiled sprite. And I'm going to come in. And I think right away I'm going to turn on my grid to help me line things up. So show the grid. Notice that that grid does not line up well with my size, so let's set up that grid. I'm going to set it to 50 by 50 and apply. And then we'll just stretch that out. Now, that would be great if we were just sitting in space, but I actually want to move through space. And so I'm going to click on this object and I'm going to make it extremely tall because what I'm going to do is make the camera move over the top of this to give this appearance that I'm moving through space. So let's make this like 6,000 pixels high, and then we can back it up like 5,600, let's say. And then I'll just drag it into position. And so what I have now is uh, a level that is 6,000 pixels long, but it's not really going to move because if I hit play, you'll see that, oh, it just looks like a solid background right there. That's not okay. So let's actually make it move. And to do that, we're going to go to our events. And there's really only one thing I need to do. I don't need a condition. I always want this to happen. I want the camera to move. And so I'm going to add an action. We'll go to other actions and we'll find camera. And we're going to set the camera's Y position to make it move up and down. And I'm going to, instead of setting it to a specific number, what I'll do is I will subtract. And the reason I'm subtracting is remember that as you go up in a game engine, you're actually changing the Y value for the negative. So Y is getting smaller. But I don't want to just move by a specific number because if the frame rate of the game changes, then it will look like I'm moving at a slower rate or a faster rate. So I'm going to go grab how much time passed since the last frame was drawn. That way I can keep the speed constant. But if I was to use this, it would move really slow because the fraction of time that occurs between each frame is not very much. So I'm going to multiply this and we'll say by 50, and you can adjust that number to get the speed that you want. So I'm going to say OK, and we'll hit play. And you'll see that sure enough, my camera is sliding over the top of that long background image that we used. The only thing we have left to do in this part of the project is to get the ship and to get it to be movable. So we're going to add a new object, and I'm going to use the blue spaceship right here. We're going to add it to the game. And there's a couple things I need to do with this blue spaceship. Let's stick it into our scene is the first thing. Second thing I'm going to want to do is add a couple behaviors. The first behavior, let's keep it on the screen. So I'm going to go find the screen Stay on screen right there. So we're going to use stay on screen. You could also make screen wrap work if you wanted to, but I'm going to keep it just on the screen for now. And let's add also top-down movement. So stay on screen needs to be added first, and then top-down movement. And I don't want this object to rotate. Uh, so I'm going to click uncheck the rotate thing and we'll apply it. And let's see how this behaves. So if I hit play, oh, it's going bye-bye. But notice that I can move the way that I want it to. Now, if you want your ship to rotate as you're moving it, that's fine, but you will have to add an adjustment for the angle because what happens is it'll use 0 as going straight across, and that means when you're going up, it's actually going to rotate to a 90-degree angle. So I'll show you that. So if I move up, notice it rotates because going up is a 90-degree angle. Going right is a 0-degree angle. So we're going to need to offset that by going to our behaviors, and we'll put a 90-degree offset in that. Okay, so then now when I move, you can see that it does move as we expect. But you don't have to have that rotating. And in fact, I'm just going to go back and turn that rotation off because I'm from the era where the object didn't rotate when you were playing a game like this. There is one thing I think I am going to change though, and that is I want the uh, acceleration and deceleration to be a little bit higher. So let's set the acceleration to 600 and the deceleration to 1200. And we'll apply that because I want to be a little more responsive. So let's see here, forward, side to side. Okay, that's a little bit better. I still may want to change the maximum speed. We'll decide that here in a minute. So the other thing you notice is that the ship keeps falling off the screen. And we don't want that. We have to keep pushing forward the way it is right now, and that's just kind of irritating. So let's go add one more action. And what we're going to do is take that blue player ship and we're going to add a force to the ship. We're not going to add a force in the X direction because we don't want it to just slide side to side. But we do want to counteract the motion of the camera. And so we're going to go minus 50 because the camera is moving at about a rate of 50 because remember the speed for time per second was multiplied by 50, which means our rate of our actual background moving is 50 times what a second would be. And I'm just going to stick that in there and we'll hit play. And you'll see now, if I drag this over, notice our ship is just sitting there, kind of flying through space, but I can still move it because any adjustments that I make in speed now are relative to that 50 going in the upward direction. Negative 50 would be going up. So at this point, we have the basics of our top-down shooter. And the next thing that we'll be doing is looking at how do you start spawning random enemies.